warfare and military strategies of ancient Egypt. Unlike the ancient Greeks and Romans, the Egyptians didn't leave us with an abundance of military manuals or any type of material detailing battle tactics, organization, unit formations, and outfits. What is known about Egypt we know almost exclusively from the mass of sculptured evidence found on battle reliefs created by order of the victorious kings. The battle reliefs of the pharaohs of the New Kingdom at Abu Simbel, Karnak, and Medinet Habu, as well as the wall paintings found in the tombs at Beni Hassan and Thebes, depict highly efficient, well-organized, and well-equipped armies. Egypt first became united around 3200 BCE. The last great battle against the Sea Peoples was fought in 1185 BCE. Between these dates was the Golden Age of ancient Egypt, after which the country was governed by Ethiopian and Libyan pharaohs that employed the services of mercenary armies, eventually leading to the deterioration of military conditions and the weakening of the country. The Old Kingdom of Egypt. During the Old Kingdom, wars were relatively small-scale and consisted entirely of infantry. Armies likely used a straight-line front of light. Infantry armed with spears, shields, clubs, or battle axes. Archers would have been positioned either behind the infantry line or on the wings. The archers would fire on the enemy, while the center would advance to hit on the enemy front. Hand-to-hand combat would continue until the center was broken and the enemy had fled the field. The Middle Kingdom of Egypt. Middle Kingdom Egyptian armies were better organized and saw more variety of units that contained special shock troops, armed with an axe or bow and shield. These professional soldiers were meant to breach the enemy ranks, thus allowing the other Egyptian infantry to swarm in. The fighting would continue between pairs of combatants, armed with similar weapons, until one was driven from the field. It was only the heavy spearmen units that charged in single lines behind their great shields. The New Kingdom of Egypt. Egyptian battle tactics in the New Kingdom used revolutionized armies with war chariots and various types of new weapons that had been introduced by the Asiatic Hyksos. These armies of highly trained men had more striking power and were commanded by professional officers for the first time in Egyptian military history. Military campaigns in Syria usually involved the pharaoh first taking a Phoenician coast port to be used as a base. The supplies and reinforcements could be shipped from Egypt. This way, the Egyptian army could save the long march through Palestine and the Orontes Valley and keep the troops fresh, a key to every battle. Having secured the port of Byblos, Thutmose III landed his army and conquered Carchemish. Then the pharaoh had the boats still at Byblos dismantled into sections to be loaded onto four-wheeled wagons drawn by oxen and carried overland to Carchemish. There, they were reassembled, and the army could continue their travels by the river. Egyptian battle tactics. The armies would press forward in close order, usually in columns of 4, with the officers taking the rear. Chariots were positioned either on the wings or in intervals between the infantry divisions. Skirmishers issued forth in front to clear the line of advance, and were followed by the main army and then the baggage train, which was made up of 4-wheeled carts pulled by oxen. When it came to battle, the infantry was always in the center with chariots on the wings. The light units, mostly archers and slingers, lined up in front of the heavy troops. And when ordered to attack by the trumpeters, these archers and slingers discharged a volley, and the heavy units of spearmen, Ichipesh-wielding swordsmen or makesmen, pressed forward in close order in an impregnable phalanx. The role of chariots? Simultaneously, the chariots would be discharged and would sweep towards the enemy. The light chariots would fire missiles at the enemy and then move to avoid physical contact. They would be followed by heavy units, the main objective being to crush or break up the enemy front line, already harassed by the light chariotry. The light Egyptian chariotry would initially charge for something that would appear to be a head-on collision with the enemy lines, only to wheel at the last moment and run parallel to the enemy front, giving them a broadside of archery fire from the closest range possible. This way, the Egyptians would not present a stationary target and would be protected by the vehicle itself. This kind of assault broke the enemy troop formations as well as pursued the demoralized enemy. Infantry units, on the other hand, chariots could only operate on level ground and were of little use against fortified walls or in holding ground against the enemy. For these purposes, heavy infantry units were employed. They advanced in phalanx under cover of archery fire, either assuming long column formations or being deployed in small distinct bodies in order to fight the enemy in hand-to-hand combat. They used heavy maces, battle axes, or the kepesh, Egyptian sickle sword, to hit on the flanks and center of the enemy, while often receiving their fair share of friendly fire from the bowmen. Archers and light infantry either acted in lines or adopted loose formations. It depended on the terrain or the movements of the enemy troops. After the initial charges and demoralization of the enemy, the light chariotry would regroup for the second wave of assault in support of the now engaging infantry units. The chariot archers had to be the most skilled among all archers in the army, as the outcome of most battles depended heavily on their aim and ability to break enemy lines and formations. Courage of the individual fighter. Whenever a chariot steered too close to the enemy and there was no turning back, the warrior would dismount and grab his spear, battle axe, or kepesh for hand-to-hand combat. Other times he would stay in the cart and grab a bow with the charioteer, reins looped around his waist, holding a shield to protect him while aiming.